Ah, the glorious Model D. I got this mouse pretty much when it first launched over a year and a half ago. Glorious checked a lot of the boxes when this came out. It's really lightweight, with an awesome shape, great clicks, a solid scroll wheel, and some good looks to boot. Soon after the Model D, Glorious released the ambidextrous Model O wireless, and that quickly became a gaming fan favorite, presenting one of the best options for performance and value at $79.99. It didn't take long before people started to ask for the same treatment on an ergonomic gaming mouse. Out of all the gaming mice that I've tried up to this point, I can honestly say that the Model D is among the most comfortable, if not the most comfortable mouse in my collection. For ergonomic gaming mice, this one was hard to top, until today. Insert the glorious Model D wireless. This mouse is much more than a D with no strings attached.
But wait, there's more!
In today's video, you're going to get a handful of all the latest differences and see where this D stacks up against the competition. Let's go ahead and get started. Inside the box, you have the glorious Model D wireless itself, the wireless receiver and extender dongle, a USB-C ascended charging cable, an extra larger set of G-skates, an insert from Glorious PC Gaming Race, a foil Glorious sticker, and a quick start guide. That's pretty much it for the contents of the box. Let's go ahead and take a look at the new Model D wireless. Here it is, and it feels identical to the wired Model D. If you didn't already know, the ergo shape and even the side buttons are heavily influenced by BenQ's Zowie EC series. The D sports that signature subtle hump, and it just fills up my entire hand, something I'm not really used to. On another note, I think both mice will be great for palm or claw grip users with medium to large size hands. Aesthetically, the first thing that sticks out to me is the new left and right mouse buttons. As you can see here, compared with the original, the new mouse buttons no longer have those honeycomb cutouts. I'm not exactly sure what the purpose of this is, but for me, it does look a little bit cleaner. Though part of me will miss seeing some of that classic RGB underglow. On the bottom of the mouse, you'll find a large overhaul from the previous Model D, as you should, since now you have an additional power switch and battery. There's also fewer honeycomb cutouts, but if you look closely, you can see that the honeycomb walls are actually much thicker. This may play some role in the overall structural integrity of the mouse, which brings me to my next point, the build quality. The Model D wireless build quality is superb. The construction on the original wired Model D is solid, but you can definitely see some play and even get it to creak when pressing in on various points of the mouse. I can't say the same for the Model D wireless. This thing is noticeably more sturdier, and it's built like a tank. The Model D wireless has an overall length of 128mm, a width of 67mm at its widest, and a height of 42mm at its tallest point. It weighs in at a low 68 grams on my scale, though there may be up to 2 grams of variance according to Glorious. I think the variance may also be attributed to your G-skate setup. Like the MOW, the MDW is only offered in black or white with a matte coating. Maybe in the future we'll be blessed with a glossy option for those of you that like that texture and aesthetic on the wired models. Moving on to the RGB. Like the other Glorious mice before it, the MDW features RGB accent lighting in the scroll wheel, light strips on the left and right sides, and 3 lighting zones for RGB glow on the inside of the mouse. It's not as eye-catching as the other mice, but for good reason. Glorious has beefed up the outer shell significantly, so a little bit of RGB comes at the expense of more solid construction, a trade-off that I'm perfectly fine with. If you're looking for the best RGB experience, definitely go for the white model, as it reflects light much better. The LEDs in the acrylic light strip on both sides of the mouse are diffused really well and provide for some smooth lighting effects. There are several RGB mode options which you can cycle on board by simply pressing in the scroll wheel, DPI button, and side button 4. A little difficult to do at first, but you can access the lighting modes in the software, which we'll talk more about later in the video. But here you have further customizations such as brightness, effect speed, and the ability to set specific colors. Overall, the RGB underglow is not as visible as last year, but it's still very solid and sure to capture the attention of anyone walking by your gaming setup. Now let's talk about one of the biggest differences. The Glorious Model D wireless features a new set of proprietary switches, which were made in collaboration with Kailh. Kailh is responsible for some of my favorite mechanical keyboard switches, so it was no surprise to me how solid the clicks were on the new Model D wireless. Going into this, I was told by Glorious that these new switches were binned and pre-sorted to ensure a consistent feel. I know I have a pretty small sample size here with my one copy, but this is absolutely the case here. The left and right mouse buttons are super crispy, and the sound and feel of them is identical. These new Glorious switches are rated for 80 million clicks, while the Omrons on the previous Model D are rated for 20 million clicks. The scroll wheel in my experience feels mostly the same, although it does seem a little bit more firm and tactile. Like the other Glorious mice before, the scroll wheel features these deep grooves and scrolling is a breeze. When gaming, I have keybinds mapped to my scroll wheel, so I definitely appreciate any improvement. I also found the wheel to be more steady when scroll clicking. I've said this before in my previous Model D review, but I love the large side buttons on this mouse. There is a little bit of pre-travel and post-travel by design, but I think they're easy to actuate and position very well. On that note, let's have a listen to all the switches and compare the two. Let me hear from you guys in the comments below. What are your thoughts on this move to Kailh switches? For me, I think these new switches sound much deeper and do feel better overall. When it comes to the sensor, the MDW sports what Glorious has warmly referred to as their BAMF sensor, or BAMF for short. This is the same sensor featured in the Model O wireless and by all indications seems to be based on Pixart's flagship PMW 3370. Compared to the 3360 in the wired variants, the BAMF has a higher tracking speed of 400 IPS and a wider DPI range of up to 19,000, which can be fine-tuned in smaller increments. Not gonna matter to most people, but I guess someone out there will appreciate the ability to set DPI to 410 instead of 400. Regardless, all these sensors are top-notch and you can be assured of S-tier gaming performance with either one. As far as wireless performance goes, I have to say my experience was pretty uneventful, which is a good thing. Gameplay was just as smooth and responsive as any of my wired mice, and I never encountered interference or lag of any sort. If you do happen to run into these issues, you can use the included extender dongle, which should mitigate interference and ensure a strong connection. The dongle is very compact, has a grippy rubber bottom, and will accept other USB-C cables. The MDW is outfitted with Glorious Cheeseskate's mouse feet on all four corners. There is a larger set included in the box, which you can add to the bottom if you're interested in a little more surface area. Either way, both sets on the D are rounded and composed of 100% pure virgin PTFE. The included ascending cable is also a high performer. It is plenty flexible, lightweight, and has the right amount of stiffness for gaming. I don't think it's going to be game changing if you end up having to charge as you play, but I do think the connector is heavy enough that you'll be excited to shed that extra weight when you're charged up. Like the MOW, the battery life here is identical at a whopping 71 hours on a single charge with the RGB off. Finally, let's go ahead and talk about the Glorious Core software. As I mentioned before, you can further customize the RGB lighting and even create different brightness settings for wired and wireless modes. Setting keybinds or macros is a breeze, and any of the MDW buttons are fair game, including the DPI button. When it comes to performance, you can adjust the liftoff distance, debounce time, and pulling rate. I typically only use two different DPI settings, one for gaming and one for productivity. I hate having to cycle through several different DPI settings, so thankfully you can reduce the number of DPI stages or create additional ones if you need to for some reason. Other than picking out your specific DPI preferences, I do suggest making adjustments to the debounce time as well. Special thanks to Optical Tech on their mouse latency video, which demonstrated significant impacts on performance based on this one setting. Okay, I think that's pretty much it for the video. Overall, the Glorious Model D wireless scores really high in my book, and it's an easy recommendation. Though it doesn't look like it, Glorious has made some significant improvements to the Model D, which was already a great ergonomic gaming mouse. Excellent switches, a flagship sensor, solid construction, wireless functionality, and it weighs nearly the same as the original wired Model D. This is pretty remarkable stuff. Just like the MOW, the MDW at $79.99 presents top-tier gaming performance at a great value. Looking directly at you, Viper Ultimate, and you too, G Pro Superlight. In my mind, Razer's Death Adder V2 Pro would be a solid alternative to this mouse, but even that is $130. Anyway, if you guys are interested in this mouse and would like to support the channel with your purchase, you can use my affiliate links in the description below. As always, if you have any questions at all or just want to help me out with the YouTube algorithm, go ahead and drop a comment below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If you enjoyed the video, hit that thumbs up button and support the channel by subscribing. I gotta go eat some rice. I'll catch you guys on the next one. This is Lil Rice Muncher Gaming, signing off. Thanks.